So if you know me and you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I almost exclusively read horror, thriller and mystery books, right? Well, I do, or that was the plan, and I still do, that's still the plan. But I have to make this video today to talk about two dark fantasy books that I have read recently that absolutely blew my mind, so much so, to the point where I am now wanting and so eager and like desperately craving to read more dark fantasy, and even fancy. I can see how people love it so much now, and I feel like I am slipping into that realm. That is where we are. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo and Hellbent, which is the sequel to Ninth House. So we'll start with Ninth House. So I read Ninth House about 2 weeks ago-ish, maybe a little bit less. But basically, this book follows a girl called Alex Stern, or Galaxy, her name is in the book, and she is unfortunately involved in a pretty horrific accident where there are like multiple murders, and she wakes up in a hospital and is unexpectedly invited on a full scholarship ride to Yale University. The reason why she is invited and given this opportunity is because she can see and speak to ghosts, or as they in the book are called greys. This book is very a dark academia, it's paranormal, it's witchy, there's spells, there's demons, you name it, it's in this book. If you think of dark fantasy, it's most likely in this book. It is just wonderful. So this first one really just sets the scene. You get to meet the characters, get to know the characters, just get a feel for the vibes, and pretty much what happens is a murder happens, another murder on campus happens, and Alex is responsible for finding out if the secret societies are involved, if they are involved in the accidents that are happening around campus, if they are involved in dealing with damaging or dangerous occult magic. So yeah, that is Alex. She is our main character, and then we have Darlington, who's our secondary main character, and he is basically like her master in that he's like training her and showing her the ropes. There might be a little bit more to that, but I won't go into it too much because I don't want to ruin anything for you guys. But yeah, that is the first one. And then we have Hellbent, which, as I said at the start, is the sequel to Ninth House, and this one is like Ninth House times 10, Ninth House on steroids, in that this goes really dark. This is like depths of hell, demonic vibes, like it is a lot darker than Ninth House, and personally, coming from someone who loves horror books and loves dark books, this was so up my alley, and I'm just like, wow, these books were so amazing. I honestly did not think fantasy was something I was gonna get into, and there's no reason aside from I just haven't invested the time into trying to get into it. And for me, because I was unsure if it was something I wanted to read, it wasn't really worth like risking spending the money on, because books are not cheap, as we know. You buy a book and you're going to be spending $15 to $20 on a book. So whenever I go into the bookstore, I wouldn't really want to take the risk on buying a fantasy book that I may or may not like. And although I do have that situation with horror books, I don't always like all the horror books that I read, I don't always like all the thriller books I read. I feel like I'm more likely to like them because I'm more familiar with the genre, if that makes sense. But with fantasy, I'm not familiar with fantasy at all. It's very unknown grounds for me. But the thing is, I've watched a lot of fantasy based movies and fantasy based TV shows. Vampire Diaries, for instance, I absolutely love. So I feel like I've always actually been into fantasy and just didn't know it and didn't realize that it was something I probably would be interested in when it comes to books. I just didn't give it a chance. And so I read Ninth House because a lot of my horror friends and thriller friends were recommending Ninth House because it was so dark. Instantly finished that and went and got Hellbent that same day that I finished Ninth House, and I just devoured both of these books. So I just want to come on here and tell you guys, if you are on the fence at all about buying Ninth House or Hellbent, if it's a book that you've been interested in reading for a while and you haven't yet, 100% I recommend it. 1000%. 1000% actually. I recommend grabbing it and reading it. If you're a fan of dark fantasy, dark academia, if you're a fan of horror, if you're a fan of paranormal, demons, wolves, magic, witches, spells, all of that good stuff, then you will enjoy these. And I'd say they are quite dense. They are pretty long books. The first one's about 450 pages, I think, and then the second one is near to 500 pages. So they're reasonable sized books, so they will keep you busy for a little bit depending on how fast you read. They kept me busy for a good few days. 100% worth the investment though. Like seriously, these were so good. And now I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, I clearly need to read more dark fantasy books or just fantasy books in general. So I don't know if you guys have any recommendations, any books that are similar to Ninth House or Hellbent. I know that Leigh Bardugo did the, I want to say Shadow and Bone series. So I'm contemplating picking that up. But the thing is, I know that that's YA fantasy, and YA is something that I'm trying to steer away from because I haven't had the best experience with YA. I do prefer the more in-depth adult books. So yeah, if you guys have any recommendations for things that are similar to these books but are still adult, then I am all ears. I'm really keen and worried now that I am going to be jumping headfirst and becoming addicted to, I was going to say drinking fantasy. Wow. To reading fantasy. They were just so fun, and it was such a magical experience for me. Honestly, when I finished them, I cried multiple times because I was so immersed and in love with this story. I was so crazy and addicted to the characters and the relationships in the book and just all the magic and the adventure. It was just wonderful, and even just thinking about it now, putting a smile on my face and putting a smile on my poor dark heart. I just wanted to let you guys know that I read dark fantasy and I loved it. So we're probably going to be having a little bit more of dark fantasy on the channel going forward, or fantasy. We will see. Let me know down below if that's something you would be interested in. I do have another reading vlog coming up soon. I want to film that because I haven't been focused on making my videos recently. I've just had so much going on and so much on my mind. But I want to get back to that, and I want to make a nice comfy reading vlog. But yeah, let me know if you want me to read any more fantasy books and if you have any recommendations. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you've read Ninth House and Hellbent, let me know what you think of these books. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye everyone!